Okay, you've pulled down a couple of these for me, a couple of your unpainted ones. Now, this is what they look like when they come out of the mold. Now,
yeah,
your product is available. You can get it unpainted, which is right as you see out of the mold, or you'll paint them. Is that correct?
Yes, unpainted, they are $65, and painted is $195.
Okay, so now part of what makes them quote-unquote best pilots would be the paint jobs. I mean, we did the other piece with you today of some of your painting techniques, and it's pretty incredible. So kind of talk to us a little bit about that paint system and that methods that you use.
Okay. Whenever I paint one, I always try to do to essentially push and pull the detail. And what I mean by that is I sculpt a ton of detail on these pilots. A leather texture, even the ribbing on the bands of the goggles give it that elastic band look. Want all that to work for us. So when I paint that, we'll do washes or dry brushing to either make anything in the shadow recede, any highlights and details, and make those really pop out. And if you'll see the other segment, you definitely will see some of those details pop out for us when we use those techniques. And but the nice thing is too, people that really like to paint pilots, there's a ton of detail in these for you to work with. And I just always challenge myself to make sure I give that to my customers so they can have the best experience painting these as possible. And I have a lot of people that don't even fly airplanes that buy these that just likes to paint them. So
now, if I remember correctly, you said you've got a couple of these figures sitting in museums.
Yeah, there has been one is in the Naval Aviation Museum down in Pensacola. It's hanging in a cockpit of a beautiful Corsair done by Dave Ganikos. You know Dave from Warbirds of the Rockies. He's been there a couple of years.
Right.
And he does modeling for the Smithsonian and all that. But this one was in the museum in the Corsair down there, and it was the Pappy Boyington pilot figure. And we actually, to make it look like the pilot that flew the plane, we actually used Sailor's face, and it was almost a dead ringer to what was his name? Robert Hansen was the Corsair pilot, highest scoring Corsair ace. That was to celebrate the 100th anniversary of marine aviation. So then we've also got let's see, two others. Two are in the Spirit of Flight Museum by Dave. One uses the custom face. We're actually now with the new 3D printing, we're able to you can send in a photograph of a pilot that you want. It can be yourself, or it can be maybe one of your aviation heroes. Even if it's black and white, I can colorize that, and we send that off to a place that will do a 3D print, and it will be a 3D photograph print of the face submitted, and then I mortise that into the best pilot figure, and it looks just like you or whoever you want.
So you're saying you've got your quarter scale World War I, you call him Luther, right?
Luther, yeah, Luther von Richthofen.
But I'm doing myself a D7 that's flown by Ernst Udet. So if I send you a picture of Ernst, you can actually get his face on that pilot figure for me.
Yeah.
And that goes for anything that you want. So.
Yeah, so you will send Ernst in, and Ernst will be black and white. I will hand color that in the computer, the photograph, and submit that to the 3D printing company, and they will print that out in full color in 3D, and it will have the features of Ernst Udet, and then that will be mortised into, take Luther's face out and mortised in Ernst.
So for the people that are competing in scale competitions, this is absolutely, but even like that, if you were doing an airplane why not, if you want to copy an airplane, why not copy the pilot as well, right?
Sure, if you're going to go that far with it. And I've had several do tributes to fathers, grandfathers, neighbors, things like that, and so they can do that guy's plane that he flew in the war and then actually have that pilot in there.
Feeding off that a little bit, I understand one of your pilots that you actually know the pilot that you modeled off of. Yes. You're doing him in a figure?
Yes, that's Bob Sweeney. He was...
And that's the figure that we were using in the other piece, right?
Yes. Bob and I met. He was an avid golfer, and I worked at the golf shop when I was in high school. Found out he flew airplanes. And so with that knowledge and background, Top Flight came out with the P-47 back in 2003. My dad decided that, hey, let's do this after Bob's plane, and we did. Bob loved the aircraft, but he didn't like the pilot. Said it wasn't good looking enough. I said, one of these days, Bob, I'll set you up, because I always like to sculpt the pilots. And eventually got around to it. So the first 1/5 scale pilot that we did was Bob Sweeney. Bob's 90 years old now. He loves the fact that there's several hundred of these little guys flying around all over the world. It's amazing. South Africa, Turkey.
And you've shipped all these places. Oh.
Yep, all over the world. Australia, Taiwan, and of course about almost every state in the United States too. And
so that doesn't do anything for Bob's ego, knowing that you've got, no, not at all, right?
Not along with him driving his Corvette around town at 90 years old.
Now, I noticed that when we were doing the other piece, when the painting, you used some different paints that you wouldn't immediately think of, like when you're doing the faces. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, since I paint quite a few faces a year, I try to go through the quickest way, most expedient way, but still keep maintaining the quality that deserves the name of Best Pilot. And one of the ways we did is a lot of the faces I use chalk or pastels to paint the faces. What that does is alleviates me using an airbrush, which can be troublesome at times. And with the pastel, it's just real quick. You apply it essentially like makeup, and it gives you a nice total range throughout the face and gives you that more realistic look, I think, than just a flat flesh color. And then some other things we do is to get the leather effects. This has actually started out as black, and then it's dry brush, which is you just leave a minimal amount of brown paint on the brush and dry brush it across the helmet, and it hits all the high spots, and that really makes that detail pop for you, especially on the straps and areas like that. Then can even go so far as to use colored pencil, things of that nature. Now you can use all this, what is considered a somewhat temporary pigment, but once you fix it with dull coat or something like that, it's permanent. So you bound it to the subject matter, and that pigment will stay on there forever.
And these are pretty tough. I mean, you've had some of your pilots; they've survived crashes of the airplanes, actually.
Oh yeah.
So they're not fragile little dolls.
No, not at all. You do want to prevent events, undue vibration or something like that, because I've seen some of them in cockpits that the plane, I don't know if the plane was going to survive, much less the pilot, the severe vibration that was going on. So if you kind of soft mount them or use a like Zappa goo or silicone caulk or something like that to mount them on, that's even better. Kind of protect against the severe vibration on these guys.
And the resin that's made out of these, you get them, they come in a shape where they are there, but if the pilot doesn't quite fit to where you need him to.
Yeah, you can use a heat gun or a hair dryer to position the legs a little bit too. You spread the legs apart, mash them in a little further, and even bend them with a hair dryer or heat gun.
And then once they cool down, they go back to being rigid,
and they stay.
And it's not going to be a problem.
Yeah, and you really can't melt it flat. You can make it soft, but you can't make it run.
So it's not like a plastic where if you get it too hot, you're done, because it's going to melt and just be gone.
Right. But to be on the safe side, I use a hair dryer. Works great. Make them be able to reposition them.
Now, I know Best Pilots for you, it started off as a hobby, and now it's a business, but you're still working out of your basement, and I don't know if anybody can hear over the microphone, but it's summertime, your kids are upstairs banging back and forth on the floors.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean you're not serious about what you do here as a company.
Oh, no, not at all. Well, it is a hobby, but also it's fun to go out and meet guys, because I'm an avid RC flyer as well.
And that's how we met when I was at Warlords of the Rockies.
Flying airplanes. So I think that's just such a big part of it, to supply something that the modelers, us modelers really enjoy and like. They want to put them in their planes. That's great. And but then being a modeler, I also know what you need. Now I know you need something that looks good, but it's also got to be light and flyable as well. So being in the business and being in the hobby, I think it just goes hand in hand. Besides, it's fun.